today we're going to do something a little bit different. How do I begin? So when we first met, my lovely wife was missing certain foods from the Philippines, and one of them was Pandesal. And I scoured the internet back then, way back then, for recipes. But we just came back from the Philippines, and I got to taste firsthand what real Pandesal tastes like. Not from Goldilocks or one of those bakeries, but from the guy that blows the horn on his tricycle as he goes up and down the street and sells you a bag of Pandesal. Yeah, the real deal, right? And then my cousin through marriage was there, Felly. Hey, shout out to Felly. And she gave me a recipe that she says is pretty damn close to the authentic. So she sent me the video, and I watched the video, and I have to say it looks fantastic. So I'm going to give it a crack here in New Jersey. And it involves all of these ingredients. I've got flour, sugar, and egg, half stick of butter. Even though the recipe calls for margarine, she says margarine is better, I'm going to use butter. Yeast, obviously, salt, believe it or not, dry milk, which this is the key to this, because when I saw that, I was like, oh, this shit's probably real. And then milk, and then you coat them with some plain breadcrumbs. So using all of my fun that I've been having making regular bread, all kinds of bread, I figure, well, I can use those very same techniques with these ingredients and try to emulate what I tasted over there. And now that I've tasted the real thing, I have to say one other thing. I believe that if you get it from Goldilocks here in New Jersey, it's going to be good. The problem is it's going to come in a bag and it was made yesterday or the day before, and you need to kind of warm it up and resurrect it. But otherwise, you really need to have it fresh made. So that's what's going to happen. I'm going to make the dough tonight, and then tomorrow morning, the house is going to smell like Pandesal. All right. So I'm going to do the wet and the dry separate, as always. There's a half cup of milk. Get that out of the way. And we're going to put in a half cup of water. And I'm going to throw that in the microwave for about, I don't know, 30 seconds just to take the chill out of it, because that milk came out of the fridge. I'm going to melt that butter, and then I'm going to beat that egg, and all of those wet ingredients are going to go in one bowl. Okay? But I'm going to also add the yeast to the wet. And then we're going to add all the dry in the separate bowl, the other bowl. Got me? All right. All right. So dry ingredients, right? So we're going to use 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. So that's 1 cup, 1.5, 2, 2.5. And we need 1/4 cup, right? 1/4 cup plus a tablespoon of sugar. There's my 1/4 cup of sugar. Plus a tablespoon. It's interesting, right? Okay. And then we just need a teaspoon of salt, which sounds about right. Teaspoon of salt. Let me see if I can get this taken care of without spilling. Okay, teaspoon of salt. Boom. And I'm just going to sift that into the bowl, and then I'm going to mix it up. And oh, by the way, when I saw the recipe and I saw there was 2 tablespoons of powdered milk, I was like, yeah, this is probably the real deal, right? Because it just seems like that's kind of something they would do, because you remember, you know, milk is a little bit different over there. It's you know, some ingredients are just harder to come by. So I think that was kind of what made it feel more authentic to me. Okay, And so there's my milk and my water. And I'm just going to put 2 teaspoons of yeast in there and just let it dissolve. Now I still have to melt that butter and I have to beat that egg, and I'm going to mix all the wet ingredients together. Then I'm going to add them to the dry ingredients and I'm going to make the dough. Follow me? Cool. Okay, so you see I've got my dry ingredients all mixed together here. There's my milk and my water with the yeast floating in there. I'm just going to let that dissolve a bit. I've beaten up the egg, and you see there's my melted butter. It's a little bit warm. I want it to cool a bit, so I'm going to give that, I don't know, 5 minutes to cool. My yeast is melted in my milk and water. My dry ingredients are here. There's my egg, and my butter has cooled. And now I'm going to put a little well in my dry ingredients and add all my wet in there, just like that. Was I crooked? What?
In the center.
Am I not close enough? Okay. You see, I'm just forming a dough. And this is 1 cup of flour that I'm going to use for kneading. And I don't want to use any more than that. Hopefully I'll use a lot less than that, because I don't want the dough to dry out. I want it to stay fairly hydrated. You see how nice that dough just came together, huh? It smells good too. It smells really nice. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to sprinkle a little flour down. And let's turn that dough out onto my table. It's cold out. Is it cold out? Well, you know what? Maybe it's a perfect day for Pandesal in the morning. Okay. So there's all of my dough. And I'm going to sprinkle a little flour on top and start the kneading process. Right? I don't want to knead it too much, but I just want to get it to form a nice dough. And then we're going to put it, right? See, I can feel it getting sticky already, right? It's going to be a sticky dough. That's fine. I'll just put a little bit more flour. And let me get a scraper, huh? Okay. Right. I'm not worried about having a sticky dough. I do that with sourdough. I do it with my pizza dough. Shouldn't be a problem with this dough either. Okay. And I have to say, I got to give compliments to the woman that did this, and to Felly for finding it, because I have a feeling this is going to be a fantastic Pandesal. I just have that feeling. All right. And it's interesting. I'm going to put a link to her video in my video link, so you can see the original video. She even breaks down the cost in pesos for all the ingredients. As it turns out, all of these ingredients cost about 90 pesos to make about 18 pieces of Pandesal, which is pretty cool. I'm going to clean that bowl, oil it up a bit. Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. See, it is getting sticky again, but you know what? I'm going to let it. I think that's it. I got to tell you, it smells really nice. Okay, let's go oil that bowl up. Okay, so I just have an oiled bowl here, and I'm going to scrape up that dough. Let's get a little oil on my hands, and this is not your typical, right? I'm going to let that rise. And look, I have a lot of flour left over from that cup. I probably could have used a little bit more, but again, I want to keep the dough pretty wet, I think. So I'm going to let that rise. Probably it's going to come up to about, here, You know, I don't know if it's going to double. Since I used fresh, dry yeast, it's probably going to rise quicker than when I do my other doughs. So I'll just keep an eye on it. Once it rises, I'm going to cut it into the sized portions and then let it sit in the fridge so tomorrow we make pandesal. But hold on, I got to do one more thing. All right, so you see I've got my bowl. What do we got? We've got 889 grams, or 1 pound 15 ounces, so almost 2 pounds. Okay, good. What was it in grams? It was 889 grams. Okay, cool. That's all I wanted to know. All right, so it's just 2 people in the house, so 18 pieces of Pandesal is way too much. So what I'm going to do is take half put it aside, and we're going to use half to make Pandesal, and we're going to take the other half, put it in a bag, throw it in the freezer, and then I can do it again. So here we go. So that one's going in a little bag in the freezer. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do here is make 40-gram pieces. That's 53. 40 grams, perfect. 55, Jesus. 40 grams. All right, so I'm going to roll these into nice balls. You'll see when I'm done. Okay, so here they are. 10 40-gram Pandesals. They're going in the fridge, and tomorrow morning we're baking them. Okay, look at that. So I took the Pandesal out of the fridge. Also notice I did put the crumbs on them last night before I rolled them in the crumbs because I knew I didn't want to roll them in the crumbs after they've risen like this. I don't want to touch them. So now they're going right in the oven, 350 degrees for, I don't know, 12, 15 minutes. We'll see. Okay, and here they are out of the oven. They baked for about 15 minutes, 350. And there they are. Remember how tiny they were when I first rolled them? Now look at how nice and beautiful, puffy they are. All right, it is time. It is time to have one. I have to say, it's very close to what I had in Laguna. Very close. I think the one I had there was a slightly bit sweeter. I might put a little bit more sugar in this one, but otherwise, the texture is spot on. So I'm happy with the results. And shout out to Felly. What happened?
It's fluffier. Mm. The other one in the Philippines is a little denser.
So would you like it more dense or would you like it fluffy? Because that's just a matter of changing out some of the flour.
Mm-hmm. Denser a bit.
You want a little bit more dense?
Bit.
Okay. So next time I do this, I'm going to use a little bit of bread flour to make it a little bit more dense. But I'm happy with the result. And again, shout out to Felly, because without Felly, I wouldn't have had this recipe.